Okay, major breaking news. There are now reports that TikTok plans an immediate shutdown on Sunday, meaning that even if you have the app downloaded on your phone, you may not be able to access it entirely.
I'm back, it's your boy FITTIE, and today we're going to be taking a look at these TikTok videos. Apparently TikTok is getting banned Sunday, so hopefully, you know what I'm saying, something comes in to stop the ban. But if it gets banned, you know, it was just meant to be. I guess it was just God's plan. Let's try to get to 1,000 likes this video. We've been hitting 1,000 likes really consistently, and I love that for us. It says around 70% of you guys are not subscribed, so make sure to subscribe. It dropped down from 75 to 70, so we're making progress. Let's go. Make sure to watch to the end because, as y'all know, these videos get crazy.
It's a dream come true. Are you nice? Are you a nice possum? Are you nice? He don't look too nice, but he's kind of nice. He think he's scary. Okay, he might be a little scary. Okay, he's a little scary, I'm not gonna lie. Look at his teethies. Oh, don't fall! You look like you're about to fall, buddy. You're falling! Do you actually bite, though? He's kind of sweet. He all bark, no bite, so far. He all bark, no bite. He all bark, no bite, isn't that right? His breath be yeah, your breath. I'm sorry if that offended you, but your breath is kicking, guy. Your breath do be stinking. Oh, I'm not so bad now. Oh, yep, I'm kind of the bad guy. God damn, your breath stinks. You stink.
It's only in the USA that I know where moms, not even like men, but moms will go up to like any sort of animal they see and start petting it. Like, y'all mom be kind of brave, I'm not gonna lie. I remember one of my exes, her mom used to love bear, like a lot of bears. I'm like, dude, those shits will like murder you. But like, nah, she'd be like, I can't wait to see a bear, I'm gonna go up to it and pet it. I'm just like, you're gonna pet a bear? You're bugging. You're bugging. I don't care if it's a black bear, a grizzly bear, an orange bear, a pink bear. I'm not going up to that. That's just me personally. Someone in the comments of that video went, imagine being terrified and then the perceived threat starts petting you, lol. Literally.
These are some of the most terrifying places on Earth. First up, the Eastern State Penitentiary in Pennsylvania. This has been called the most haunted prison in America. This abandoned prison in Philadelphia was known for locking people up for 23 hours in a day with only a small window in the ceiling for light. This caused many prisoners to go insane. Some people who visited this prison have heard ghostly voices coming from inside the walls. Next, this place is literally called the door to hell. It's a giant hole in the ground that has been burning non-stop since 1971. Some say scientists were drilling a hole which caused an explosion, but if you're brave enough to visit the door to hell, you still can. Last, we have Nagoro Village in Japan. Imagine you're in a small village, but all the people have been replaced by dolls. In Nagoro Village, there's about 20 people living there, but over 300 life-size dolls. They're placed all over the village as if they're living people. There's even dolls sitting in classrooms of abandoned schools. This can be really creepy. Follow for more.
Normal looking photos that have a disturbing backstory. When you first see this photo, you may not think much of it. The young guy in the photo looks pretty normal. But this is actually 17-year-old Jeff Franklin in the back of a police car. This photo was taken immediately after he was arrested for brutally beating his parents to death with a sledgehammer. He also critically wounded 3 of his younger siblings. This picture at a beach looks like your average vacation photo. But this image was found on the lost camera of 2 people who were swept away by a tsunami moments after this picture was taken, meaning that everybody in this photo died just minutes later.
You're not the victim in this offense. The victim of this offense is the child.
That's where I'm confused.
That's what we are talking.
The man you just saw in that video was Joshua A. Richardson. He's from Connecticut and he was convicted of molesting his own nephew. So Joshua frequently looked after his 9-year-old nephew and his sister, and at one point the 9-year-old began to tell his mother that Uncle Josh had touched him in his private areas. Now, as it turns out, this boy's mother had gone to the police in the past years prior to allege the same things, that this guy had been touching her own son. Now, I don't know why the mother kept having him watch over her son. That's a whole different thing to discuss. But Josh was eventually arrested, tried for these crimes, found guilty. But as you can see in that sickening interrogation footage, he puts all the blame on the young child. If you watch the full clip, it's incredibly disturbing. He states he was confused. The young boy was sending him mixed signals. Now, let's keep in mind, this child was 9 years old. In my opinion, someone like this should be locked up and the key should be thrown away. They should never be out of prison. But as we all know with the American justice system, I'm sure that this guy will be out in a year or two back in his community, able to target, once again, whoever he wants to.
What is the craziest thing that someone's confessed to on their deathbed? Well, a deathbed confession made this year solved a 20-year-old cold case. And this is coming from the Heart Starts Pounding podcast episode that's all about cold cases that were solved this year. So this year in West Virginia, a man named Larry Webb was dying. And before he died, he called a nurse over and said he needed to get it off his chest that he killed a woman and her daughter back in 2000. It turns out that back then, a woman named Susan Carter and her 10-year-old daughter Alex were living with Larry while Susan was in a custody battle with Alex's father. And one day they just disappeared, but because they were together when they disappeared, police assumed that Susan just ran away with her daughter. But Larry confirmed that that's not what happened. The story he gave on his deathbed is that one day he came home to see that Susan was stealing money from him, and so he shot her. And then panicking, he wanted to get rid of all the witnesses, and that included Alex, her daughter. And to me, the craziest thing in all of this is that Larry had really bad dementia, so when he gave this confession, they weren't really convinced that it was true. But the day after he died, both of their remains were found in his backyard. If you want to hear more on that story and other cold cases that were solved this year, check out the Cold Cases That Were Solved This Year episode of the Heart Starts Pounding podcast, wherever you get your podcasts.
The murders of Abigail Williams and Liberty German, also known as the Delphi case, has finally been solved, with someone being sentenced for the girls' murder. Richard Allen, who is believed to be the bridge guy, has been handed a whopping 130 years sentence for the murder of the girls. Now, if you're unfamiliar with this case, back in February of 2017, the girls went on a hiking trail and ended up not coming home, but they ended up filming a man that was looking really suspicious on the trail, and they even got a snippet of his voice. But despite this, the case remained completely unsolved. No one had any idea, but police were also really tight-lipped on what had happened to the girls. Like, their cause of death remained unidentified and all that kind of stuff. But during the trial, it's revealed that the girls' cause of death, they had their throats cut. One of the girls was found fully clothed and the other one wasn't. As well as their bodies were found with an arrangement of twigs near them to kind of make it look like some kind of ritual. But what tied Richard Allen to this crime scene, because there was no DNA, there was no nothing like that, there was simply a bullet casing that hadn't been fired from a gun, but it had been like kind of cycled in and then disposed of. And that bullet matched the exact handgun that Richard Allen owned, as well as the clothes that were seen in the iPhone video footage. These clothes here were found in his home. The jury actually deliberated for about 3 or 4 days until they came up with their verdict. And he was found guilty on all counts and sentenced to 2 65-year sentences for each of the girls.
So this man over here decided to transition into a woman so that he can avoid going to a man's prison. If for some reason you don't think this is messed up, I don't know what to tell you. In 2016 and 2019, a 31-year-old Adam Graham, who was first a man, attacked and armed 2 women. Adam claimed to have gender issues since the age of 4, but he only started transitioning in 2020 after he was charged. He changed his name from Adam to Isla, and now he's serving time in a women's prison in Scotland. So you're telling me that a man who was charged and found guilty of the RAPE of 2 women was put in a facility filled with women? To me, it's just alarming how no one thought that this would be a safety concern for a woman, especially because of what he was charged with. Someone make it make sense.
That's got to be one of the world's biggest scams. Like, that dude just scammed the justice system. Because It's like me being like, you know what? I want to box as a woman. Like, obviously, I'm going to beat all the women boxers. Like, naturally, males are just stronger than women.
One of the world's biggest scams happens to you every single day, and there's a 99% chance you fall for it every time. When's the last time you went out to eat and you actually looked at the price of things? I'm not talking about the price of the food, I'm talking about the price of the tip. Some restaurants have figured out a pretty genius way to steal more money from the customer, all while the customer has a smile on their face. Here's how it works. Once you're done eating, the server will come by and drop off your bill, and that's where you'll put your card on the table. The server will then take your card, go pay for your meal, and then come back with a receipt. Once you have your receipt, you'll see something like this, or like this, or this. See, what some of these restaurants aren't telling you is the 15, 20, 25% number they put on the receipt is not actually the right amount. They know almost 100% of you are not going to pull out your phone and double check their math, so they'll inflate these prices by about 5 to 10%. From what I read, you can't blame the server for this because any of the extra money that's added from the 20% tip just goes into the manager's pocket. I just got done reading an entire report on this stuff. There are more companies doing this than I actually thought, and I know for a fact I have fallen for this. So the question is, how many times have we all fallen for this?
I can gladly say I probably fell for that once or twice, but realistically, I never actually go based off of that. I go based off of how the server actually treats us and like what she or he does for us. I never see like, oh, 15%. Okay, I'm gonna put the exact number. I'd be like, man, $5. That's what you get, gang.
So we know that the real story of The Little Mermaid is super disturbing. In the original Hans Christian Andersen story, once she's a person, she can't turn back into a mermaid. If she doesn't get the prince, she'll die. But her sisters find out that if she can spill the prince's blood, she'll be able to turn back into a mermaid. So they do what any sisters would do. They sell their hair for a dagger so that she can stab the prince. But in the end, she can't bring herself to do it, so she jumps off of a boat and disintegrates into sea foam. So it makes sense that Disney had to change that, but Disney's had to change a ton of other very disturbing details in their other movies. And just a reminder that if you have a dark curiosity, you'll love the podcast. In the original Cinderella, she doesn't get a dress from her fairy godmother. No, in the original tale, there is a tree growing next to her mother's grave, and Cinderella cries so hard over the tree that her tears water it. The tree gifts her a dress as a thank you. And then later, when the evil stepsisters are trying on the glass slipper, they realize it doesn't fit their big feet and they chop off parts of their feet. And then they go to the prince like, look at the shoes fit, and he sees that bloody mess and he's like, they absolutely do not. So a bunch of seagulls come and pluck their eyeballs out. That's all obviously terrible, but the original Mulan might be one of the worst ones. I'm gonna do part 2 for that though.
Analyze that story and I have no clue what was just going on.
This is maybe the scariest urban legend I've ever heard, and it ended up being true. Back in the 1970s, there was this terrifying fun house in Long Beach, California called The Laugh in the Dark. And there was always this urban legend that all the mannequins inside were fake, except for one. Also, mind you, this is what this week's episode is about, so if you don't want spoilers, just listen to the episode. This urban legend came to be because there was one mannequin inside that just looked wrong. All of the other ones looked fake, but this one in particular looked way too human. And a bunch of the kids also said the area that the mannequin was in just smelled really, really bad. So a few years go by, and one day a film crew comes in and is using Laugh in the Dark for a film set. The director's lining up a shot, and he just doesn't like the way this one mannequin looks in frame. So he goes over to a crew member and he's like, hey, can you just move this out of the shot? So the crew member goes over and starts moving the mannequin when its arm pops off. And inside of the mannequin's arm is human bone. The kids had been totally right. The mannequin was a mummified body. There's so much more to this story, like who the person was and how they got there, and I talk about the whole thing this week on the episode.
I'm actually really surprised that no one smelled that, because I don't think you guys understand, like, dead bodies do not smell great. Maybe if they're mummified, maybe they don't smell as much, but I know that dead bodies do not smell good. Don't ask me how I know, I just know.
A killer clown was just released from prison in Florida. This case dates back to May 26, 1990, when 40-year-old Marlene Warren opened her front door. In front of her was a clown holding balloons and a basket of flowers. Marlene stated, "How nice," before the clown fatally shot her in the mouth, then calmly walked away. Authorities suspected 26-year-old Sheila Keene for years, who was having an affair with the victim's husband, Michael. But unfortunately, there wasn't enough evidence to convict her. 12 years later, Michael and Sheila wed in Las Vegas, moved to Tennessee, and started running this burger joint called the Purple Cow. They lived happily as if nothing happened, and Sheila even had the audacity to dress up as a clown one year. But in 2014, Florida authorities received a grant that allowed them to reopen the case. Advances in DNA technology allowed them to test a brown hair at the crime scene. It belonged to Sheila Keene, who was finally arrested in 2017 and pleaded not guilty. But after 7 years in jail, prosecutors gave her a deal in April of 2023. In exchange for pleading guilty to second-degree murder, she received a 12-year sentence. A Florida law allowed credit for good behavior, and that is why she was released on November 2nd of this year.
To a deathbed confession, a nearly 24-year-old cold case was closed this week when the bodies of a missing girl and her mother were found. 10-year-old Natasha Alex Carter and her mother Susan disappeared from their home in Beckley, West Virginia in August 2000. But at first, police initially reported that Alex may have been abducted by her mother. In a press release from December 2021 about the case, the FBI Pittsburgh said, quote, "At the time of their disappearance, Susan Carter and Alex's father were having a custody dispute, and Alex moved in with her mother and mother's new husband," which it's not confirmed that it was actually her mother's new husband, but they moved in, and then not long after that, Susan and Alex disappeared. But while it was initially suspected as a parental abduction by Susan, after the two remained missing, an investigation into other possibilities ensued, but unfortunately, the case went cold. In 2021, the FBI reopened the cold case and started looking into the man Susan and Alex were living with, Larry Webb. Searches of his home were done in 2022 and 2023, and they found a bullet embedded in the wall of what was Alex's bedroom. The bullet was tested for DNA, and it confirmed that blood on it belonged to Alex. In October 2023, Larry Webb was indicted on first-degree murder charges for Alex's death, despite Alex and Susan's bodies never being found. Due to his deteriorating health, though, Webb was not arrested until April 12, 2024, but since then he was being held without bond. On Monday, he had a medical episode, after which, in a, quote, come to Jesus moment on his deathbed, he confessed to authorities what he had done. Webb claimed that on August 8, 2000, he had gotten into an argument with Susan over money. He said he was missing some cash and believed that she had taken it and spent it. The argument escalated and he shot her, and then he ended up shooting Alex so there would be no witnesses. Webb then wrapped their bodies in bed linens and placed them in the basement that night. Over the next 2 nights, he dug a shallow grave in the woods on his property, eventually burying them in his clothes and then walking free for the next 20 years. On April 22, 2024, Larry Webb died at Mount Olive Correctional Complex, and 6 hours later, Susan and Alex's remains were found at his property in Beckley. Unfortunately, now that Webb is dead, he cannot be charged in connection to their deaths. At least now they have been found and can be properly laid to rest. Alex's father, Rick Lafferty, said after the discovery, quote, "It's kind of a sad day, but also a happy day because I can bring my baby home." Rest in peace, Alex and Susan.
Yeah, it's kind of like, keep doing that. It's kind of like the first story like I'm saying, like I feel like it was just resting on his soul because apparently he had dementia, and then bro was just like, yeah, dude, I did that to them. It's crazy, but at least, you know what I'm saying, at least he finally admitted it. Maybe that will save him, I guess.
This is the reason why you stay away from haunted houses. A Japanese paranormal investigator by the name Gashan explored a house that locals feared and called it Ju-on's house. As Gashan explores the house, he hears footsteps upstairs. Worried homeless people might be up there, he attempts to reason with them by letting them know he'll leave if they're up there. He doesn't get a response back, so he carefully explores the upstairs rooms and makes a horrifying discovery. He finds Buddha's altars in the first room, and in the second room, he finds an old knife which disturbs him. Shortly after entering that room, he hears a bell somewhere in the house. As he explores the house for 30 more minutes, he can't find the source of the sound, so he finally decides to make his way out. And when he goes downstairs, this happens. He unknowingly records what looks like someone's legs swinging above the stairs he just went through. He didn't even realize it until looking at the video.
That dude is brave. He went in there all alone too. Like, what? Dude, when I went into a haunted asylum, I had to bring my 3 homies. If I did that alone, I would have just jumped through the window. I swear to God. Check out for that video. It's coming soon, I promise.
The girl you are looking at has no idea that she's about to take the most unexplainable photo in history. This is 5-year-old Elizabeth, and this is her father Jim, who instructed her to sit down so that way he could take a picture of her in her brand new dress. He took a total of 3 pictures while his wife and his other daughter stood right beside him. When the photos were developed, Jim found on the second photo there's a large humanoid figure standing behind him that resembles a spacesuit. The couple came out and said, "We were in an empty field, there was no sort of bystanders, and I think we would have known if somebody was standing behind our daughter." Jim had the photo examined by Kodak Lab, and they said the anomaly in the picture is original negative, which means this thing behind her is physically present there, like it's real. This picture was taken in 1964. Obviously, there was no sort of Photoshop, but if you think that's the craziest part, listen to this. This all made headlines, and Kodak Labs offered $1 million to anybody who could disprove this photo. And to this day, it has never been paid out. More recently, people have been saying they have debunked this by saying it's really her mother standing behind her. And I don't know, her mother was wearing a blue dress that day, and they basically said the overexposure from the light made it look white. Here are the pictures side by side, and you kind of let me know what you guys think. So is this Jim's wife in the background, or is this something we've never seen? Make sure to like and follow for tomorrow's video.
This is the scary story about the peephole, and this story is absolutely disturbing. A 15-year-old girl named Donna lived with her father in a very small house. Ever since her mother died, Donna had depended on her dad for literally everything. One morning, Donna's father was leaving for a business trip, and he told her he wouldn't be back until later that night. And with that, he kissed Donna on the cheek and left. Later that day, Donna got home from school and did some homework and then relaxed and watched some TV. The clock then struck midnight, and she noticed her father still wasn't back. So Donna decided to just go to bed. That night, Donna had a dream. She found herself standing on the edge of a busy highway. She then looked across the highway and saw a familiar figure standing there. It was her father, and his hands were cupped around his mouth trying to yell something to her. But Donna couldn't figure out what her dad was saying. She also saw that his eyes looked very sad, and he seemed to be desperately trying to communicate with her. She could barely make out the words he was saying, but it sounded like he was saying, "Don't open the door." Suddenly, Donna woke up to a tapping noise. Then suddenly, somebody rang the doorbell. Donna then got out of bed, got dressed, and then scrambled down to the front door. She then looked through the peephole and saw her father's face outside. He was staring directly at her, and the doorbell was still ringing. "Okay, hold on, I'm coming," she shouted. She pulled back the deadbolt and was about to unlock the door when she suddenly stopped. She then looked through the peephole again and noticed there was something very off about her father's expression. His eyes were wide open and he looked very terrified. She then slid the deadbolt back into place and said, "Dad, did you forget your keys?" But the doorbell just kept ringing. "Dad, answer me," she said, but the doorbell continued to ring. "Dad, please, I need you to answer me. Is there somebody else out there with you?" But there was no answer and the doorbell continued to ring. Donna then yelled at the top of her lungs, "I'm not opening this door until you answer me." The doorbell continued to ring and her father did not answer her desperate cries. For the rest of the night, Donna sat in the corner next to the door crying and helplessly listening to the doorbell ringing over and over again. She then eventually fell asleep, and in the morning when she woke up, she noticed it was very quiet, so she got up and went over to the peephole. She then looked through it and saw her father still standing there staring. She then opened the door and was confronted with a sight that filled her with absolute horror. Her father's severed head was hanging from a nail above the door, and there was a note attached to the doorbell, and in weird sloppy handwriting it read, "You are a very clever girl."
I'm not gonna lie, that's a really strange story, but I was laughing because in the middle of that, he said, "It filled her with absolute horror." And then in the captions, it says absolute horror. And I was just like, that's hilarious.
The search starts now. On my way to go meet a cadaver dog team.
Layla Santinello's story is one that I think of often. For 15 months, she has been missing from Kingsport, Tennessee, leaving behind almost no trace. She was last seen on June 27th, 2023, wearing a white tank top top, black leggings, and had no personal belongings on her. Layla would not disappear for this long, especially considering that she has a daughter of her own. I've said it before, I think foul play is involved, but we won't know anything until she is located. Recently, her mother, Jennifer Santinello, had posted a video raising money for cadaver dogs, which would be crucial to the investigation, and her goal was met. I am certain there will be a day that we know where Layla Santinello is. Until then, there is a $7,000 reward for anyone that can lead police to her current location, and please consider following her mother, Jennifer Santinello, and donating to her GoFundMe to help fund the investigation. Share this video, and if you have any information, please call 1-800-TBI-FINE.
The amount of water that AI uses is astonishing. According to a report by the Washington Post, if you ask ChatGPT to write you a 100-word email, it uses 519 milliliters. And I know for a fact, some of you are asking it to write you 3 novels a day. And think about it, just ChatGPT alone has 200 million users. So if each of them got it to write 200 words, that uses 207 million liters of water per day. And that's not even considering all of the other companies that use AI now, like Meta, Google, Microsoft, Apple, and the use of AI is growing by the day.
I didn't even know AI uses water. That's interesting. I mean, I guess it's a better fuel source than like gasoline or petroleum or something, but hopefully AI doesn't suffocate our water needs and then stifle us, that we can never drink water ever again. Imagine that was one of the ways AI in the future decides to control the human race by just taking our water for themselves. That'd be crazy.
Okay, major breaking news. There are now reports that TikTok plans an immediate shutdown on Sunday, meaning that even if you have the app downloaded on your phone, you may not be able to access it entirely once this ban comes into effect. Let's go through this. So the initial report comes out from a news outlet called The Information, and they say that sources familiar with TikTok's plans say that people attempting to open the app on Sunday will see a pop-up message directing them to a website with information about the ban. The report also says that TikTok plans to give users an option to download all of their data so they can take it with them. Now, the law potentially coming into effect doesn't mandate TikTok to go out this way. So why would they? Well, what the report says is that what the law does explicitly prevent is US-based hosting services from supporting the app. That includes cloud providers like Oracle, which currently host TikTok US users' data. They say that without access to these hosting services, TikTok would face significant operational challenges in maintaining its platform with the United States. And while they could consider migrating TikTok's data to servers in China, they say that that could introduce latency issues, which would be significant. Oh, I mean, honestly, man, imagine if this is the way that TikTok actually goes out. How are we even going to talk to each other about how insane this is? Hopefully we find out something from the Supreme Court today, so I'll keep you updated.
As the days go on, the ban is getting more and more real. A lot of people thought the government was bluffing this and all that, and maybe they still are, but like, I don't know, it's just weird to me that the people that are behind this, the congressmen or whatever, they see TikTok as like a real threat when we have other things in our country. When I say our country, I mean the US, the other things in the US that are way more devastating to us than just TikTok. It just makes you really think, like, what's really going on? But anyways, if you guys like the video, remember our like goal is 1,000 likes, subscribe, and vlog video is coming soon. Catch y'all in the next one.
Thank you all for watching.